Now he's doing the argument with the question mark thing. It's really common, but try not to do this. Welcome back to Apologist Reacts. Let's get back to doing some movie scenes. I've enjoyed watching people have real dialogues. We will keep doing that. We polled our audience recently to find out, do you like those more or the movie scenes thing more? And it was almost 50-50. It seemed like there was a little bit more votes on the real dialogues, but every once in a while, you just want to do something a little bit more light and fun. So when I've asked people what scenes they want me to respond to, this was, I think, one of the first votes. And it's a classic scene from the first Jurassic Park movie, one of the best films to have ever been made, in my humble opinion. So this is obviously something I have seen before. I didn't watch this ahead of time and make notes or anything, but certainly I have seen this movie many times. And but let's take a look at the dialogue skills in the classic dinner scene.
More adventurous guests, of course, can opt for our jungle river cruise or for a close-up look at our majestic...
None of these attractions are ready yet, of course, but the park will open with the basic tour you're about to take. And then other rides will come online 6 or 12 months after that. Absolutely spectacular designs, spared no expense.
And we can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it. And then there's the merchandise. I can personally...
Donald,
This park was not built to cater only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
So obviously, Hammond interrupted Gennaro, and generally speaking, we want to avoid interrupting people. But I'd give him a pass in this situation because he's wanting to prevent the expert guests that he's wanting to get their opinion on their endorsement to think that this is all about making money. So I'd probably have done the same thing in this particular situation. But generally speaking, really try not to interrupt. It's hard. I do it sometimes because I get excited about something I want to say or respond to. And generally speaking, definitely avoid that.
Sure, they will. What, we'll have a coupon day or something.
Gee, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little bit different than you and I had feared.
Yeah, I know. They're a lot worse.
No.
So, I mean, it's hard to not love Malcolm's, the character, Goldblum's character. And so, at a writing level, I love this. But if it were me, I would have wanted to try to start with some common ground. It is incredibly impressive what you guys have pulled off here. Something along those lines. But maybe that's not possible because maybe basically he might have zero good things to say to them that would be common ground. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this case he just can't. He's just he needs to speak truth to power or whatever. And I appreciate he's doing this. He's definitely doing it in a very rhetorical and strong way. To say that not only do you disagree with what someone is doing, but to say that you disagree to the level that it staggers you, how arrogant they're being, it's going to make everyone feel defensive. And that's not going to make a better dialogue. And frankly, it's probably not going to make Hammond or Gennaro more likely to end up agreeing with him. So at a persuasion level, this is not the way to go, generally speaking. It might be the way to go if you want to convince a bunch of people who are watching. Right. But if you're just in a private room, this isn't a movie, this is real life, and you want to convince them we shouldn't do this, then you've got to try to argue against it in a way that's not going to make them feel personally attacked or you are this immoral person that you would do this thing.
Wait a second. Now, we haven't even seen the part where
Don't let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear every viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the...
So I appreciate Hammond saying he wants to hear every viewpoint. It's it's hard to tell, at least from the movie version, how true that is. But at least he's entertaining, for everyone to be able to share opinions here at this dinner table. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that he's not trying to cut Gennaro off, or I should really say cut everyone else off, the way that Gennaro is trying to do. I think it's not the most unreasonable thing in the world for Gennaro to point out that they haven't seen the park yet. Like, it's early to have like really strong opinions. Like, I think there's something fair about that. Of course, that wouldn't have worked out because we all know what happens in the movie. But like, yeah, you want people to have fully informed opinions. I think there's something reasonable. But of course, like let's say like an alternative version of the movie existed, or like there's an alternative timeline where they never hired Nedry and like everything like basically works. Like the park basically works and power doesn't go out and everything is fine. They do the tour, they tour everything, and then they come back and have another dinner. I think if anything, Malcolm's going to feel even more strong about like what he's saying, like what his concern about like the potential things that are basically he's going to argue are inevitable if you play around with this aren't going to change because he also saw the raptors and the T-Rex and like the gallimimuses and stuff. And so, yeah, there's some value to both those things. Let me back up a little bit so we can hear what Malcolm says here.
Wait a second now. We haven't even seen the part where
Don't let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear every viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here?
Okay, so this is something worth taking a look at. Notice the way this question is worded. It is worded in a way that will totally make someone feel defensive. He said, "Don't you see the inherent danger, blah, blah, blah." This is why we think you should, generally speaking, not make arguments that end with a question mark. Because that's what's happening here. He's making an argument, and it's a leading question, and it puts people on the defensive. I know it is a really popular technique. It's something that apologists all over the place do a lot, and I just don't think it's helpful. I think it's pretty obvious what's happening. It makes people feel defensive, and people don't change their mind when they're feeling defensive. You know, instead of this, he could say, "It seems to me that while there's a lot of exciting things about this technology, that there's also an inherent danger that just comes with it." Like saying, "It seems to me that," and here's my opinion, as opposed to, "Don't you see this obvious thing that I see?" Like that kind of thing. That's like implied by what he's saying, puts people on the defensive. It's really hard to change people's minds when you're doing it. It happens. There are people that are like so open-minded that the other person can do things that are suboptimal and it'll still work out, maybe because they're friends or whatever. But that's not applicable here.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
Like, I mean, that's even worse, right? You're like, he's comparing them to a kid with dad's gun, which, you know, it's just like, it's very rhetorical. It's fantastic writing, but if you're Hammond, you feel super defensive as soon as that comparison's been made.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may.
I think Gennaro's right. I mean, kind of right here. That's not the appropriate way to be. I mean, appropriate's a weird word here. Like, what are the rules, of this dialogue? But I was like, if you want to optimize the conversation towards persuasion and not just everyone states their opinions in the strongest ways possible, then what Ian is doing is not helping him to change people's minds. So Gennaro kind of has a point here, even though he is the, least sympathetic character in this entire movie.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may. I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it.
So, like, this is better, right? Like, he's just saying, like, let me just make my argument. Here's my concern. What he just said did not end in a question mark. It ended in a period. Said, here's the problem. And I think this is more the way that we should model our dialogues after. This method of persuasion is better.
You read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't.
And I kind of like the way he says that. Like, and this might be me like overanalyzing, but this like expression that he makes.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done.
That look right there. Like, what I interpret from that is like, you made this mistake that's like very natural to make. You took the next step, which is like, that's like going to be the momentum, the direction of momentum anyway. And like, he's going to argue you shouldn't have. But I appreciate what he's doing here.
And you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
so there's an interesting thing that just happened where Hammond now feels like he's basically heard Malcolm's argument and is trying to get him to kind of like, okay, like I hear you, I get it, stop, because I've got something to say now. He doesn't interrupt. When this body language thing doesn't end up working and Malcolm keeps going on, like he kind of like puts his head down in like kind of frustration, but he keeps on listening, which I think is the right move. This is a thing that happens in dialogues because people often will do this thing where like they start monologuing, and it's not fair really in the dialogue. What would be appropriate here is after this thing hasn't worked, you let the other person continue for a little while, but at some point, like hopefully the other person has seen this and sees this as like a yellow light. And okay, I'm gonna like wrap up my last thought or point or whatever. Like you get one or two more sentences and then like done. And then the other person gets to talk. I think that's fine. That's like this organic thing that happens all the time. But if you're talking to someone who just like completely ignores all the body language and just like has been going for 5 minutes, I think at some point it becomes appropriate to be like, time out. You know, like maybe we need to even have a meta discussion here. Like, I this is getting frustrating because I feel like you've now made 45 arguments, and I have thoughts on all of them. You know, kind of a thing. Like, can we do this? You know, a little bit more, or where we both get to talk, kind of a thing. So,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
see, that's so. I mean, like, is that not the best line that's ever been written in a movie? I mean, it's like the most quotable thing ever. Love that. And I like what both of them did here. Hammond made his counter argument, ended it with a period. He like here's like a reason to think differently, and Malcolm countered him and said, no, here's the problem with that argument. Like, it happens fast. It's a rat-a-tat-tat thing, like happens in movies or anything Aaron Sorkin writes. I love Aaron Sorkin's writing. I'm just saying, like, that's the goal. That's the end goal is kind of this witty back and forth banter of people who are very, very knowledgeable. But at least there's like, okay, we're just making our arguments. There's like there's a battle of opinions going on here. There's a war of ideas, and I appreciate that.
Condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was
This is legitimate. This is legitimate. That okay, Hammond now is giving by counter argument. He's like, here's an exception. Look at this kind of obvious exception that shows that this, in his mind, kind of big generalization of the inherent danger of messing around with genetic technology. I think that's fine.
no, if I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have any.
I think that's okay too. Like, this is better than I thought. Okay, Ian basically has signaled to Hammond very quickly that he disagrees with this example. You could argue he went there too fast. That he should have listened more and considered, everything he was going to say. But I think by that point, it's pretty obvious the argument that Hammond was making. So I like how Malcolm basically signaled, even he said the word no, and he's shaking his head to let the other person know that you disagree and signal like, okay, I've got something to say about that. But he didn't interrupt either.
Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have anything to say.
No, hold on. This isn't some species that was obliterated by deforestation or the building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction.
I simply don't understand this Luddite attitude, especially from a scientist.
So I like that. That was really good. And then now when Hammond refers to him as a Luddite, and is like almost like you're betraying science. that's more of there's like an ad hominem genetic fallacy thing, kind of happening there. That's like instantly kind of degrades at least this back and forth here.
I mean, how can we stand in the light of discovery?
Now he's doing the argument with the question mark thing. It's really common, but try not to do this.
And not act.
Oh, what's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrative act that scars what it explores, what you call discovery. I call the rape of the natural world.
So again, like just really, really extremely strong rhetorical statements like that. Like they work so well in like a public debate, or like if you're trying to get an audience to agree with you. But if you're trying to convince a single person or a couple of people, I generally try to avoid really, really rhetorically extreme statements like that, or that kind of language usage, because they could be like, "You're comparing me to a rapist now?" Like that would be like a natural reaction to what you just said there. So, anyway.
Well, the question is, how can you know anything about an extinct ecosystem? And therefore, how could you ever assume that you can control it? You have plants in this building that are poisonous. You pick them because they look good. But these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary.
I think this is better. There's kind of an argument with question mark thing going on, but it's closer to kind of stating where she's coming from, because it's kind of more of a rhetorical question as opposed to like a real question. So it's okay. Certainly, this is going to make people less defensive than what Malcolm was doing.
Dr. Grant, if there's one...
So why isn't Hammond responding to her? Like she just made a different point, completely different point than what Malcolm is making, and coming from a different area of expertise, about the plant biology. And Hammond doesn't respond to her. Like now it's like he's getting, I think what's happening is like now Hammond feels really defensive and is seeing like, okay, I brought 3 experts here to endorse this thing. And it seems like 2 are against me. Hopefully I can get 1 siding with me and maybe that'll like help the conversation go. But if I'm Laura Dern's character, I am a little bit, I feel like I haven't been heard at this point. So
one person here who could appreciate what I'm trying to do.
The world has just changed so radically, and we're all running to catch up.
I love that. Look at what he just did. He's slowing everything down and sort of acknowledging this is difficult. We're all trying to catch up. And by all, I'm not sure if he just means the 3 of them, or arguably the 4, because Gennaro seems like he didn't fully understand how lucrative the part could be, but at least the 3. And maybe everyone involved. Maybe this thing has been moved so fast that everyone is kind of trying to catch up to it. So I just see this as a charitable statement, as kind of common groundy. We're all on the same team here. We're all trying to figure this out.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look. Dinosaurs and man, 2 species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
So it's stronger at the end, but I think the fact that by the way that he started it made it easier for people to hear the last kind of stronger statement that he makes there.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
It's like, it's really funny, but like, obviously don't call people names. But if you're in a movie, like, I mean, that was pretty hilarious. All right, let's rate this. We haven't done ratings in a long time. It's been a long time since I reacted to any movie scene. So Hammond, he was bringing in everyone's opinions. He hardly ever interrupted. I give him an 8. I give him an 8 because he wasn't really doing the argument with question marks thing. Malcolm, I'd give 10 out of 10 for rhetoric, and a 3 out of 10 for persuasion. Laura Dern's character, I would give a 7, and Grant, I would give an 8. Gennaro, should Gennaro even get a rating? I mean, what he was saying in the beginning was so kind of like insensitive and kind of inherently offensive. So it's kind of like snooty and and slimy, you know. So I mean, I guess I'd give him like a 2 out of 10 on persuasion. Like he didn't like get physical with anyone, but boy, that is hardly the way to persuade people to be on your side. So there you go. I hope that was helpful for you. I'm gonna do a few more of these the next time that I film these, and then we'll loop back to some of the real conversations. I've got a whole list of those that I want to respond to. So if you want to learn more about how to have good dialogues, check out the Equip for Life course. It's 5 hours long. We've got a 10% off coupon code for you, and it'll show you the most important things that we have found about having persuasive, productive, gracious dialogues with pro-choice people, which is harder this year than it has been in my lifetime. And so a really important time for us to brush up on those skills. And I'm hoping that that helps, you know, the movement, especially this year, to be having more and better dialogues. So check that out. Like, subscribe, share, all the things, all the YouTube things. Please do that to help the algorithm, help more people to find content like this that will hopefully help them to have better dialogues as well. Until next time, go have a good conversation.